ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवासादि श्री गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, dear Prabhujis, we are reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized, and we are going to read the 71st verse, another very very beautiful verse of the second chapter, the second last verse. So Lord Shri Krishna is concluding in one way the chapter or the context. So Lord Shri Krishna, he continues and he says to Arjunji, Vihaya kamanyah sarvan pumans charati nihspriyah nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantim adhigacchati. Vihaya kamanyah sarvan पुमांश्चरति निःस्पृयः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः सशान्तिम् अधिगच्छति। विहाय कामान् यः सर्वान् पुमांश्चरति निःस्पृयः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः सशान्तिम् अधिगच्छति. So very beautiful verse. Vihaya, after giving up kaman, all material desires for sense gratification. Yah, the person, sarvan, all, puman, a person, charati, lives, nispriyah, desireless, nirmamaha, without a sense of proprietorship, nirahankara, without false ego, saha, all, shantim, perfect peace, adhigacchati, attains. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, vihaya kaman yah sarvan, pumans charati nispriyaha, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, nirmamo, and is devoid of false ego, nirahankaraha, he alone can attain real peace. Sa shantim adhigacchati. A person who has given up all desire for sense gratification, desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. So in the purport, Swami Srila Prabhupada writes, to become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness. To understand one's actual position as the eternal servitor of Krishna, without falsely claiming this material body to be oneself and without falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world, is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. One who is situated in this perfect stage knows that because Krishna is the proprietor of everything, therefore everything must be used for the satisfaction of Krishna. Arjuna did not want to fight for his own sense satisfaction, but when he became fully Krishna conscious, he fought because Krishna wanted him to fight. For himself there was no desire to fight, but for Krishna, the same Arjuna fought to his best ability. Desire for the satisfaction of Krishna is really desirelessness. It is not an artificial attempt to abolish desires. The living entity cannot be desireless or senseless. But he does have to change the quality of the desires. A materially desireless person certainly knows that everything belongs to Krishna. Ishavashyam idam sarvam. And therefore he does not falsely claim proprietorship over anything. This transcendental knowledge is based on self-realization, namely knowing perfectly well that every living entity is the eternal part and parcel of Krishna in spiritual identity, and therefore the eternal position of every living entity is never on the level of Krishna or greater than him. This understanding of Krishna consciousness is the basic principle of real peace. So very very beautiful verse, Vihaya kaman yah sarvan, Vihaya kaman. So Lord Shri Krishna, he is asking in one way to give up. So he is explaining this wonderful concept to Arjunji and to all of us. So Vihaya kaman, one who has given up all desires, material ambitions, material aims. After understanding, one can give up only when one has divine knowledge or transcendental knowledge or knowledge about Krishna consciousness. So those who have knowledge and they give up all their material ambitions, aims and ambitions, goals in life. So vihaya kaman yah sarvan, vihaya kamanyah sarvan, all desires. Vihaya kamanyah sarvan, all. Vihaya kaman yah sarvan, wants, a person, charati, lives. Nispriyaha. So nispriya word is very, very important, desireless. So even after giving up material desires, one can live. Many people they think, oh, if I'll be free from, I have so many ambitions, I have so many goals, without them how I'll be able to live. But Lord Shri Krishna is saying, Vihaya kaman ya sarvan pumans charati, he lives. Nispriyaha, desireless. So in a state of desireless, one can live without material desires. That is also possible. And one can live, not only one can live, but one can live peacefully and happily. Nirmamo nirahankaraha, nirmamaha, mamaha, sense of proprietorship. These things belongs to me. So nirmamaha, without the sense of proprietorship, nirahankaraha, without false ego. So ahankara. So all of us have false ego. We are falsely thinking ourselves to be this body, and we are falsely trying to lord it over the material nature, thinking ourselves to be Lord. Because all of us have forgotten that we are eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord, and it is our duty to serve Him in devotional service. So living entities, all the living entities, most of are fallen in this material world. They have attained to ignorance. So falsely we are trying to claim proprietorship over so many things in this material world, and thinking ourselves to be material body. We are trying to satisfy the demands of the material senses and the material mind, thinking that we are serving our own self. We are trying to lord it over the material nature. So nirmamo nirahankara sashantim adhigacchati. So a person who is free from sense of proprietorship, a person who is free from false ego, one who has given up vihaya kaman yah sarvan, one who has given up all material desires, and he lives life in a state of desirelessness. So one can think how one can live without any desire or without any ambitions, without any goal in life, how one can live. Many people they may think. So Swami Srila Prabhupada has explained so nicely in the purport that to have the desire, if one is having a desire to become Krishna conscious, those who are aspiring to become servants of the Supreme Lord, those who are trying to get that divine consciousness, Krishna consciousness, so that state, because one cannot be, every living entity is an eternal being and is an eternal individual, so one cannot be desireless, one cannot be senseless. And even in the liberated state, one has desires, but in the liberated state, one is free from all anarthas, one's mind is completely purified, and one's senses are completely purified, and they only want the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So in the pure state, even in the liberated state, in the purified state, one has desires, as it was very nicely explained by Swami Srila Prabhupada in the previous purports. But those desires are also pure, because one is free from all the anarthas, all the unwanted things which are there stored in the heart from time immemorial. The living entities, because of material desires, he has fallen to the material world. So when one is completely free from material desires for sense gratification, desire for material enjoyment, then also it is the duty of the mind keeps on thinking, but the mind think about The mind thinks about the service of the Supreme Lord, and that is the real state of desirelessness. So a person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, vihaya kaman ya sarvan, who lives free from desires, pumans charati nispriyaha, who has given up all sense of proprietorship, nirmamo nirahankaraha, and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain sashantim adhigacchati, he alone can attain real peace. So again Lord Shri Krishna, he is explaining, because everyone in this material world, they are unpeaceful, and because they are not, their mind is not peaceful, their intelligence is not steady, and people are unhappy in this material world. So the only way to become happy is, in one way Lord Shri Krishna is asking Arjunji and is asking all of us to give up material desires. So Arjunji, Swami Srila Prabhupada explained in the purport, he did not wanted, he denied from fighting because he wanted his own satisfaction. For his own satisfaction, he did not wanted to kill. He didn't want to kill his kinsmen. But after becoming Krishna conscious, Swami Srila Prabhupada wrote in the purport, and that is the history all of us know. And we will see how after hearing all the Bhagavad Gita from the Supreme Lord, the Arjunji will take the decision to fight. And Swami Srila Prabhupada explained in the purport that he fought to the best of his capacity. So after becoming Krishna conscious, to satisfy the desire of the Supreme Lord, because the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, he himself is asking Arjunji to fight, and it is his desire. So to execute his desire, to execute the will of Supreme Lord is the eternal occupation of every living entity. Because every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and is situated as a servitor. Jivera Swarup hai Nityera Krishna Das. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has explained, every living entity is eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. So when one abide, or when one accepts to follow the orders of the Supreme Lord, or when one act for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, not considering his own material satisfaction, giving up vihaya kaman, giving up all desires, material desires, with pure mind, with pure senses, with pure consciousness, nirmamaha nirahankaraha, when one gives up all false proprietorship, when one gives up all false ego, then in that pure state one can live, and one can live very, very peacefully for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Because desires will be there, but in that pure state the desires also get purified, and one desire to serve the Supreme Lord to the best of his capacity, as Arjuna fought to the best of his capacity for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So all of us, we are here in this material world because we want to lord it over, because we have a sense of lording over. Swami Srila Prabhupada has explained in very, very simple words, lording over tendency. So every living entity, those who are here in this material world, they are competing in one sense. They are competing the Supreme Lord, because the Supreme Lord is proprietor of everything, because everything belongs to him, and he is the Lord and Master of everything, whatever exists. So every living entity, they are trying to copy him, or they are trying to compete him. But Swami Srila Prabhupada explained in the purport that one should understand very well, every living entity is just part and parcel of the Supreme Whole, and we are very, very minute. Every living entity, they are very, very minute. Sankhyatito hi chitkanaha anor anyan mahato mahiyan. So living entity is smaller than the smallest, whereas the Supreme Lord is greater than the greatest, and one can never be equal to him or greater than him. But unless the living being, unless the ignorant being of this material world, they give up this false ego, thinking oneself to be the body and trying to become Lord of what all we survey. Unless we give up the sense of proprietorship and false ego, one cannot attain to real peace. And in contrast, we are seeing from the past few verses, those who have given up such a sense of proprietorship, those who engage in the service of the Supreme Lord for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, they automatically derive transcendental happiness and they are completely satisfied. So Swami Srila Prabhupada wrote in the purport, it is not any artificial means. Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind to abolish all material desires, but it is the real state of every living entity in its in his purified uh, uh, in his purified state. So because we have got material contamination, because we have material desires, we have developed sense of false ego and sense of proprietorship, but everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. Ishavashyam idam sarvam. Everything belongs to the Supreme Lord, and hence everything should be used for his service. That is the perfect state of Krishna consciousness. So to become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness. So very beautiful, Swami Srila Prabhupada is explaining. Desire to regain our eternal consciousness is actually desirelessness. So desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification, to understand one's actual position as the eternal servitor of Krishna, to understand that is transcendental knowledge, to understand our eternal position as the eternal servitor of Krishna without falsely claiming this material body to be oneself and without falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. One who is situated in this perfect stage knows that because Krishna is the proprietor of everything, therefore everything must be used for the satisfaction of the Krishna. And serving the Supreme Lord is one's eternal occupation, is one's eternal duty, and every living being derive transcendental happiness, bliss in serving the Supreme Lord. When Supreme Lord is satisfied by one's actions, when the Supreme Lord is satisfied, when the Supreme Lord is happy from the devotional service of a living being, then that living being also gets transcendental happiness and bliss as a reciprocation, as a loving reciprocation from the Supreme Lord, by which he is also completely satisfied and happy. So, Arjuna did not want to fight for his own sense satisfaction, but when he became fully Krishna conscious, he fought because Krishna wanted him to fight. For himself, there was no desire to fight, but for Krishna, the same Arjuna fought to his best ability. So, desire for the satisfaction of Krishna is really desirelessness. It is not an artificial attempt to abolish desires. And Swami Srila Prabhupada is explaining it is not an artificial attempt to abolish desires, but there is a correction. The living entity cannot be desireless or senseless, but he does have to change the quality of the desire. So living entity cannot be desireless, living entity cannot be senseless, but desires have to be changed. From the desires, all the material desires have to be given up, and one should desire for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So that is the goal. That is the goal of Krishna consciousness. Desire for the satisfaction of Krishna is real desirelessness. The living entity cannot be desireless or senseless, but he does have to change the quality of the desires. A materially desireless person certainly knows. So who can become materially desireless? only one who has real knowledge. So real knowledge says Ishavashyam idam sarvam. So a materially desireless person certainly knows that everything belongs to Krishna. Ishavashyam idam sarvam, and therefore he does not falsely claim proprietorship over anything. A fully Krishna conscious person do not claim proprietorship over on his own body also, because he knows very well that this body also belongs to the Supreme Lord and should be utilized. All the senses, one's body, one's mind, one's all possessions belongs to the Supreme Lord and should be utilized for the service of the Supreme Lord. So that is the real stage, or that is the state, mental state of a devotee or a person who is situated in divine consciousness, in Krishna consciousness. And he alone can have real peace in this world. So a materially desireless person certainly knows that everything belongs to Krishna. Ishavashyam idam sarvam, and therefore he does not falsely claim proprietorship over anything. This transcendental knowledge is based on self-realization, namely knowing perfectly well that every living entity is the eternal part and parcel of Krishna in spiritual identity. And therefore the eternal position of the living entity is never on the level of Krishna or greater than him. So that is the root disease. Every living entity is competing or copying, trying to copy the Supreme Lord, or are trying to compete the Supreme Lord, but they can never become equal to or greater than Krishna. So that is perfect knowledge, knowing perfectly well that every living entity is eternal part and parcel of Krishna in spiritual identity, and therefore the eternal position of the living entity is never on the level of Krishna or greater than him. This understanding of Krishna consciousness is the basic principle of real peace. So one who understands this well, that he can never be situated on the level of the Supreme Lord, Lord Shri Krishna, or one can become greater than him. One who has this knowledge, one who has this right knowledge, and everything belongs to the Supreme Lord and it should be used, Ishavashyamidam sarvam. So he can only give up all false ego. He can become nirahankaraha, and he can become free from the sense of proprietorship when one understands fully well that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord and should be used for the service of the Supreme Lord, and one should give up all material desires, because material desires are meant for lording over the material nature. So if one understands that I am eternal servant of the Supreme Lord and everything belongs to my master, and I have right only for things, or for the things, yes, of course, for the things which are sanctioned to me by the Supreme Lord, then only one can have real peace. So sa shantim adhigacchati. So very very beautiful verse. Vihaya kamanyah sarvan pumans charati nispriya, desireless, nirmamo nirahankaraha sa shantim adhigacchati. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. So very beautiful verse. In the next session we will take up the last verse of the second chapter, the 72nd verse, and we'll try to read and understand it through the beautiful purport of Swami Srila Prabhupada. Till then I would like to stop this session here. Jai Vishnupad Paramhans Parivrajacharya Ashtotrashat Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Krishna Kripa Murti Abhay Charnarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai. All glories to His Divine Grace Krishna Kripa Murti Abhay Charnarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Lord Shri Krishna, all glories to Bhagavad Gita, all glories to Lord Chaitanya, all glories to Holy Name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.